How soon is too soon, everybody? Hey, everybody, welcome to a very, very special edition CoinGeek Soon stream. It's the CoinGeek Soon live stream. I'm going to be joined very shortly by the lovely and talented Patrick Thompson, Connor Murray, and maybe even Alex the Spoon Moon. And that's not really his nickname, but so I keep trying to pressure Alex to come on these live streams because I don't have a whole lot else to do. I work with him all the time, so we need to harass each other to stay normal. I'm your host, Kurt Wuckert Jr. You can join us most Tuesdays, or so far every Tuesday, at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. I also see Alex Agut in the green room, so he'll be joining us as well. So going to be a bunch of good stuff. We're going to talk about the Soonening, everything else that happened today across Twitch. There's some news from Calvin Ayre and some other stuff, but I think a lot of people are confused about a whole heck of a lot of things. But I would like everybody to feel free, drop your questions, comments, blessings, cursings, grapes, gropes in the troll box. We will answer them systematically. And actually, if anybody else wants to join, if anybody has something really important to say, if you're one of those official important people in the BSV ecosystem, you can ping Alex Moon on Twitter. He is Alex_Moon89. And if you are worthy, he may let you into the stream too. So we're going to do a little bit of a big time group show here. So Alex, let him in. Start dragging people in. I want to meet my friends here.
What's going on, Kurt? What's going on, Connor?
How you guys doing?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, welcome, guys. So I guess let's start right out the gate. I think the first soon that dropped was the news about CalvinAyre.com, which I actually think is quite interesting. Calvin is going to be transitioning all of his gambling industry news stuff and focusing on iGaming as it relates to BSV. So that's kind of cool. Instant feedback, please. Go, take it away. Fight over the biscuit.
All right, I'll take the biscuit. Nope. Oh, go for it.
No, fight for it.
I'll go ahead and say that I think it's big news only because I know that Calvin was so big in the gambling space that it seems like it's a big signal to. When I think of, even just in BSV, a lot of the early use cases that have emerged are gambling oriented. So I think it's really important to signal to the gambling world how big of an opportunity this is, and I think him kind of going all in on it hopefully is a big signal to that community.
Yeah, I think that he still can support both things, Bitcoin and the gambling industry, by focusing just on Bitcoin, because as we have seen with Bitcoin with the Handcash Connect SDK, this is the ideal platform for online gaming. Is incredible. You have instant payouts and it's super fast. You don't have to build your own payments network, on your own. So I think it's great, and also it's great that he's been supporting the whole ecosystem for a while, and this is like doubling down, and it's great to see his commitment.
I think it's a really positive move, because at this point in time, education is really important. And, like both Connor and Alex said, iGaming and gaming has always been a really good fit for things that happen on the blockchain. A lot of people just want that record on the chain. The other day on Bitcoin's Got Talent, there was somebody who pitched an iGaming platform saying that it solves some of the legacy problems that it has. So I think it's important that people, Calvin is a name that people know in gaming, that they can go to CalvinAyre.com and learn more about the intersection of blockchain and gaming.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And I think had there not been so much hype, and yesterday I talked to Josh Hensley on the show about maybe the unnecessary announcements about announcements and that kind of problem. I think that would have been big news in its own right, and I think we could have all said, "Oh, hey, that's great. Calvin is doubling down, and that's good." Every time you meet somebody in the gaming space and you say, "Oh, Calvin Ayre's involved," they all say, "Oh, because he really truly is the guy that brought gambling to the internet." This is going back 20 years ago. He was the first guy. He started as a software provider that was bringing casinos online, and then he realized, hey, I can put my own casino brands online too. So he's a trailblazer in that regard. And actually, I think there's a lot of parallels there to taking that gray market that existed there and turning it into just a mainstream business today. So I think there are a lot of things to learn from that. But the biggest news, obviously, today, the Craig Wright information. I have to ask, first of all, any feedback right off the bat? What is any of this a surprise? I actually found it very unsurprising, personally.
I think this is unsurprising for all of us, but I think if you really think it through, this is actually making it happen beyond just chatting on MetaNet ICU. And this is when you will see how developers act to this. And again, this could be a double-edged sword in the short term. Totally, I can see it totally going both ways. But I think it's necessary that that Bitcoin is always looking into the at least our side of Bitcoin. Okay, the Bitcoin SV is always concerned about legal procedures and stuff, and I think it's awesome.
I privately guessed this, so I didn't put it publicly because I don't like being wrong. But I had a feeling this is exactly what it was going to be about, only because when I saw his messages yesterday that said, short-term hell or something. I can't remember what he said, but saying that it was a difficult thing and whatever else, it seemed like it was the only thing that made sense. But I love how even, my dad actually texted me because he has Google alerts for, I think, everything Craig Wright that pops up or something. And then he said, what, so this isn't, so the blockchain is broken or something? That was actually his first message that he messaged me. And I said, well, if someone steals the keys to your house, do they own the keys to the house, right? Or do they own the house? And that's probably the easiest way to explain it to anybody. And I think that is probably the most important thing that we need to, that needs to be manifested into reality anyway, because up until now, so much of it has revolved around, if someone literally hacked my computer, they could steal my property essentially, which doesn't make any sense. It's not reality in any world outside of Bitcoin. So I think it's a good thing. Obviously, yeah, I agree with Alex. It definitely makes people more upset in this space, which is why you shouldn't have been surprised that this is what it was. Because if you really thought it was going to be something else, then that makes everyone happy. That probably is uncharacteristic at this point. Well,
and that's what's interesting about it, right? It's like I think a bunch of people are. I'm shocked how many people are shocked because. I mean, Craig has spent most of the last year, I would say this has been the top of his narrative, is that law is coming to Bitcoin and that miners will obey court orders. And I mean, so none of this, I don't know that we learned anything new today. And I'd also like to point out too, that from like a PR standpoint, and Patrick and I work at CoinGeek, so we were privy to some of this news a little bit early for the sake of writing about it. And it's like, okay, well, that's not really interesting. I mean, it's, other than, just timing, like, oh, okay, today's the day that this thing's going to drop. But I actually think a lot of the hype came about. I don't know that Craig or anybody with any official capacity anywhere in media put any of this together, because it really started with screenshots out of Slack and got circulated across Twitter and 4chan and everywhere else, and everybody saying, oh my gosh, is he gonna sign with the Satoshi keys? Is he gonna move all the coins? Is he gonna double spend? Is he gonna resurrect Saturn or Odin or somebody?
It seems like Satoshi era coins are on the move. Breaking news.
Really? Oh well, okay.
You got to give us more than that, Alex.
I'm seeing it on our BSV Valencia group. It was tweeted by Roy Murphy like a few minutes ago.
Okay.
I did see that.
I did not see that. So
they're from June of 2010. Coinbase is from June of 2010.
Okay, I think I have seen that circulating.
So it's another nothing burger from this Wednesday.
All right, everyone's blood pressure goes up, but don't worry.
Yeah.
So I think another thing, let's point out real quick, the Federal Reserve Bank appears to have had a major outing. So ACH payments are down globally. Gemini Exchange announced that their Fedwire connections are down, which, like, for people who don't understand Fedwire, like, this is how banks communicate liquidity between each other and that kind of thing. So the central payment network, the biggest ones in the world, they're also having a weird Wednesday. So maybe Craig double spent the Federal Reserve and DOSed them off the network or something too. But yeah, I don't know what's going on, but today's been a very weird day. Patrick, as a CoinGeek reporter, somebody that's got their finger on the pulse here, are you shocked by any of this? What's your reaction from today?
So I think at this point in time, if we hear there's an announcement from Craig that there's kind of a hunch that it's going to be related to the law. It's going to be something, maybe it's happening around the court case, maybe it's happening within the court case, maybe it's something crucial. I think overall in this situation, what's interesting to me is that, regardless of how people feel about it, something's going to court, and I think this will set a precedent. I don't think the courts have ever seen a case like this before or had to solve a problem like this before, and that means a lot for what's going to come afterward. But to me, to be honest, I still think there's some obstacles in the way, because first the court has to handle this, and they're going to have to make some sort of decision. Now, to me, when it comes to the miners and when it comes to the node operators, I just have a feeling that, there's just so many people that dislike him at this point that maybe if they all choose that their action is like an inaction, like, no, we're not going to do this, I'd be interested to see where it goes from there. But, that's kind of like jumping the gun if it gets to that point. I'm interested to see how the court handles it and, which miners are involved and how the overall mining ecosystem would react to that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, especially, when you have jurisdictional stuff, I think what people have said for the last year, as soon as Craig first suggested some of this stuff, they're like, well, how are you going to coordinate miners in Russia and China and the US? Like, they don't even necessarily agree to Western authority and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it is a complicated thing to do. I have my own thoughts on some of that maybe I'll share a little later in the stream here. But I also think it's interesting. A lot of people have pointed out that it's interesting that Craig included BSV devs or that, BSV devs were included in some of this. And then also BCHA, which I think is just Amaury at this point. And so Amaury Sachet was probably served a letter individually as well. I guess what I think is interesting too is, like, there's this long time assumption that developers are in charge of the network, right? That they sort of act as fiduciaries. And, well, I mean, this is what CZ did in 2019. There were 7,000 BTC or something stolen from Binance's hot wallet. I mean, he didn't call F2 Pool or Ant Pool or, anybody else. He reached out to the core devs and said, hey, can we roll, like, we're only a few blocks away. Can we roll back the chain? So he went to them as the people to push out the edict on such a thing. And
same with the DAO on ETH too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who are the people that moved the money? I mean, it was the developers. So it's kind of funny that, like, for whatever reason now everyone's upset. I mean, just imagine what I was kind of thinking through yesterday. I was like, imagine if he's not lying. So, like, a lot of people think he's lying about everything he says, but imagine he's not lying and he actually is looking for millions of dollars of Bitcoin that were stolen from him. Like, what recourse would you want him to take? Like, I don't understand what else you'd expect from someone in that position to do,
Yeah.
But
he's operating in his best interest, and the fact that the assets were on Bitcoin, that shouldn't change anything.
Yeah, well, right. We wouldn't treat any other property like this, to act like it's absurd for, like,
Sure.
Call the police. There's an investigation. Like, you get, there's a remediation process, and everyone's so offended by it because it's Bitcoin. But
as long as it can be proven on court,
right.
And I actually found it interesting, Kurt. I think you had like tweeted out yesterday too, but like Satoshi had written about gold turning to lead, right? And then turning back into gold again.
Yeah.
So none of this is like actually new, I guess, or supposed to be surprising because, Satoshi had the alert key and he had written specifically about if someone stole your money, you could make it unusable, but then if it was returned to you, it was usable again. And no one's ever really thought through like what he meant by that or how that would work out in practice. But it seems like this is how it would play out in practice if.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because the way that Satoshi, this was August 11th, 2010, and I don't have a photographic memory, but I remember this because I wrote about it just the other day. But I read the whole thread in Bitcoin Talk, and they were talking about how to deal with payments and shipment and delay. And they're like, well, how do maybe we can create escrow? And they were debating and they were saying, well, we can't figure out a way to create escrow that isn't trusted. And Satoshi said, well, you don't need escrow and you don't need trust because if you can prove that it was stolen, why not just reassign the UTXO there? And then he gave that analogy of gold to lead to gold again, and instantly, in fact, he was ignored. Like, I don't even know that anybody else responded. I read, 20 comments down. I didn't see anybody respond directly to that. And I think it probably made everybody uncomfortable. But nonetheless, Satoshi's like, oh, well, here's the simple solution. And it ground against their sensibilities. And therefore, I think they just ignored it.
Yeah, if you want to use this for unlawful activities, this might piss you off. Yeah.
For sure. Sorry, Mr. Moon, we have two Alexes now in the room. Feel free to put up questions wherever you see them relevant. Is Twitch switching? No. First of all, if sorry, I literally laughed and choked when I read the question. Anything that Elon Moist posts on Twitter is to be funny, for the record. So, no, Twitch is not switching to BTC. Lightning Network can't do anything that Twitch needs for their business model, FYI. So he's goofing around, and everyone should always laugh.
It would be very complicated. We really studied alternatives to BSV for forever because we only care about what's the user experience that we can offer, and ultimately we want to use the best technology. And the Lightning Network doesn't come even close to BSV. I mean, you cannot do this 3,000 people multi-payments, and
right.
You cannot do any of these things that you can do with BSV right now. And it's unreliable, and it's such a regulatory mess, and
yeah, for sure.
Not cool.
I think that's actually Ryan X. Charles's story too. I believe he looked into lightning payments for yours.org and it turned him into a big blocker. I don't think he had an opinion until he tried to engineer something to work that way. So that's a pretty common thread there. But yeah, so it's really interesting to see the stuff going on with Craig. Actually, the stuff with Twitch too. I cracked up because Twitch's website crashed today too. I was super excited. I was like, I'm gonna buy the #1 NFT hat. And Twitch was down for like an hour for me. So I was laughing. I'm sure they're scrambling. I actually invited the Twitch guys to come onto the stream too. And I think they are, I think they're probably scrambling still right now to figure out why their network fell over.
I think they are on their own stream.
Oh, okay. I mean, that would make sense.
I've seen a picture. Yeah, they're celebrating with champagne and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, those bastards. We should cross the streams.
Never cross the stream.
But yeah, so I mean, congratulations to Twitch. I actually think that in the short term could end up being like the biggest news of the day, frankly, because a really useful NFT marketplace is one of the things that the Ethereum economy has been built on in the last year. Like people trading these NFTs for a bunch of money, and I mean, they're cheaper to make, they're cheaper to store, they're cheaper to trade on BSV. We just need the marketplace tool. So, congratulations, Twitch. I will share in the champagne virtually with you guys for creating such a cool tool. Hopefully it works. I haven't gotten it to work yet, but I'm sure they'll figure that part out too.
I did have the option to buy the #1 hat, but I just thought the price was a little too much for me. But I have this issue where I see that, Josh and them are always about the trading cards and stuff. And I am just amazed at how valuable those trading cards are. So definitely they have an eye for the stuff that I don't have. So I congratulate them for, I'm sure someone bought the number one hat and will make a profit on it. And I'm just too much of an idiot to understand why. So, yeah.
In that regard, those guys are good at looking at memes, and memes, they have a short lifespan, but if it's going, it's going. It's going to pick up traction that has gravity. And as you see, the NFT market on Ethereum, it's huge right now. It's still something I feel like, me personally, I'm trying to understand, but I do think there's a lot of potential when it comes to tokenizing a real world asset like they did. It's not like they just created some digital art that only lives in your wallet that somebody might buy for more money. Like, no, there's actual physical real world assets that exist that you might have the hash to, that, you have the on-chain evidence that it belongs to you. So what they did was, it was huge, revolutionary, even, just because they're the first NFT on Bitcoin. And maybe like Shua Coin, maybe that opens the floodgates to, like, hey, this is how they did it. Now there's kind of a blueprint. There's a way that other people know that they could do it too.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, like actual tokenized physical assets. I mean, this is your digital representation of the hat. Ethereum creates a bunch of stuff out of nowhere, and they're printing billions of dollars, frankly, on tokens. And to show that, like, hey, here's a real world proof of concept, as silly as it is, a digital hat that represents a physical hat. But then, in real life, it's like, oh, like, who will appreciate this is actual trading card dealers and actual art dealers. And if we can get the attention of people like Christie's, and say, oh, hey, why don't we just integrate this solution, make it instantly trackable and all. I mean, it could be a multi-billion-dollar business, frankly. And
one of the most popular investment ways of investing right now is, and one of the most profitable is fine art. And if you can tokenize that and split it into, maybe you cannot own the full Michelangelo yourself, but you can have like 1/10 of the Michelangelo. And I think it's the potential is awesome, especially if the technology actually works, because I think we haven't seen what Ethereum was aimed to deliver, just because the network is so fucking crap that is useless. It's incredible how people are buying that shit and still investing money on building on that shit, and
it's incredible.
You make
it's
good points.
It's beyond me.
You make good points there, because I know there's people who wanted to experiment with NFTs, but let's say you want to do that on Ethereum. I know somebody he created two, but the gas cost was 100 for each. And it's not like he's some artist that people are gonna buy what he's creating. Like, they just exist and nobody bought them. He's just like, I burned the gas on that. So what Bitcoin makes possible is you can get that up there for cheaper, but beyond that, I think Alex makes a good point. And that's really where I see the potential in it, is that you can tokenize the real world asset where maybe, you yourself may not want to buy something that's $1 million, but you split that into X amount of pieces, you own the fractionalized share of it and you still have ownership. I think beyond that, it proves authenticity. Like, there's a lot of issues with real art being maybe replicated or fake if you don't have the certificate of authenticity. That could live on the blockchain. That can move from person to person easier than mailing this certificate or getting a real certificate, appraised. But I think that's where the potential lives in one instance for like what an NFT could be in the future.
Yep.
And I think it's even better because you have a real-time, very efficient way of pricing things that usually are very neat, very specific. And if you open the floodgates, you say, if you open the floodgates to all these NFTs to be tradable, and you are actually in a 24/7 market, that could be incredible, because and I think there's a lot of people that would make a lot of money with this. And if there's money to be made, there will be companies investing in this, and this is great for the base layer technology too. And that's a great benefit for all of us.
Robert here says, okay, having 1 centimeter of Michelangelo's, but what's the incentive to do it? I actually just got off a call. I was on a call moments before the stream started with a guy who reached out, who is a high-end classic car dealer. and I'm talking like cars for billionaires. So like guys that will buy a 50-year-old Ferrari, that kind of thing, and it's a $5 million car. But you don't drive that kind of car, right? So what do you do with it? Well, it can sit in a museum, you can do other things. But he literally asked me, he's like, can I break a car up into 100,000 tokens and let 100,000 people own part of this car?
I don't think I don't think it's about owning the car, but about pricing things that you think are going to probably be appreciated over time, or at least to give it a fair market price over time. And I think, for example, if you own 1,000 of a Michelangelo, then who knows, maybe if those tokens trade over there, then you will see, oh, maybe I'm willing to sell these 1,000 of a Michelangelo for $50,000, and then that creates a pricing event, and that over time actually creates a real market value for the entire part. And I think that's awesome.
I actually think too that the reason why I think I've been so blown away looking at trading cards, like I've actually been kind of interested in that the past 6 months. I just didn't understand. It seems like in the past year, 6 months, there's been like a reintroduced popularity in things like trading cards, things like that kind of idea of collectibles, right? And then even the real estate market here in the United States is just insane right now. And it seems like, at least in the United States, there is like this retreat from cash into property.
Exactly.
In some capacity.
People are running away from cash everywhere, especially in the US.
I think that's where I actually kind of hate the idea of like, I think NFT now has become a new buzzword. It really just means, digital ownership share of property, right? But so I think where I'm kind of interested in it is obviously having these NFTs, whatever, just makes the railing a lot easier and smoother to trade property and to price property, like you were saying, Alex. I think that's like where this big opportunity comes from, of going from cash into some kind of hard physical thing. And the NFT is just the way of being the digital rail to trade it, right, and to price it. So I imagine we're going to just see this continue, because people are definitely, I'm sure it's true all over the world, but in the US, I think people are retreating from cash into especially real estate here and things like that. So
well, they're clearly afraid of cash, and given the last year, the Federal Reserve printing all the money that's printed, now the Federal Reserve crashing, I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about, and that's played really, really strongly into the BTC narrative. That's what they've been talking about for years, is the incoming collapse of the dollar and the chaos that BTC will help them circumvent. And I've heard the same thing about houses selling for 30% over asking price. They're selling the day that they're listed, and people are terrified to be sitting in the dollar, because the dollar is actually one of the oldest sitting fiat currencies right now. And fiat currencies I think they have an average life of like 25 years or something like that. And we're way past that. And we've got inflation through the roof. Purchasing power is down something like 99% over the last 100 years. And so we're seeing it continue to bleed. And yeah, I mean, people are looking for that. So it's worked really well for the pure investment thesis of storing your money somewhere else. And BTC has become that sort of Swiss vault for the everyman. And I think it's important actually that we don't lose that in the BSV narrative. Like, we talk about transactions and tokens and all these things, but that's what a token is, right? I mean, we're talking about holding property because property matters, and they've eaten up that narrative. But it's our narrative too. Like savings technology. So, I mean, it's one of the first things Satoshi said about Bitcoin is that we don't want central banks to debase the currency. So it was not something that was not on Satoshi's mind, and so we need to reclaim that narrative quite a bit. Like, sound money and Bitcoin do go hand in hand, and NFTs are part of that.
But I think that's also why framing tokenization as just digital property rights is important too, because even if you don't want to get involved in the conversation of, hey, Bitcoin is better money than the US dollar or whatever else, I think that is sometimes a hard conversation to have with people who they don't know a lot about it. They're, politics sometimes gets involved with that conversation. But making it easier to retreat into property as a hedge against fiat currency is important. And you can say, well, Bitcoin is property, right? And That's what the BTC people are all they're arguing is that it's property that's worth spending $50 to move it, right?
Right.
And it's the same kind of argument of a trading card. It's like, okay, well, my BTC is worth the same as someone values this Pokemon card and whatever else, right? But making it more easy to just say, I have this kind of property, I want to trade this property with you. That to me is just as much of a hedge against the US dollar as arguing that Bitcoin is better money, right? That's my kind of thought process through it.
I'm going to comment to Ruth here. Ruth Heisman saying, sorry, fellas, women are too rational to pay real money for NFTs and trading cards. And I think that can be true. However, I have seen actual footage of divorce court and people dividing up their Beanie Babies in front of their attorneys to make sure that the right stuff goes to the right people. So women are capable of being irrational sometimes too, Ruth.
In that regard, I'll say maybe it's just because at this moment, I don't know if we've seen the best use for NFTs yet. And maybe that's just my reference for Ethereum, where people are they're kind of buying these things because they know they can sell them for more. I think Connor makes a really good point about, maybe that would be the incentive behind owning the 1/100th of the Michelangelo, that, it's kind of a shelter from cash. These things, these are big investments that people don't usually make on their own and that can live in things like museums and galleries and have value. To me, what's the difference between NFTs and real world art right now is that I think real world art kind of has value beyond the fact that, hey, I can just sell it for more. Maybe it's just a mental block at the moment, and NFTs are kind of new, but I don't think we've seen the best use for NFTs yet. People are buying them on Ethereum because they could sell them for more. What Twetch did was really innovative and creative, and there's already a marketplace around it, and I'm really interested to see where it goes next. But I don't think anybody's nailed it yet. I don't think anybody's really took the NFT and ran with it.
There are lots of opportunities to do some incredible stuff. I agree. This is baby steps and early days. Christian Declare saying, how do you guys see Bitcoin increasing efficiencies in the energy markets? With inflation coming, energy priced in fiat will increase. Would we have to start pricing in Bitcoin? Paying for commodities with commodities? What do you think, Alex? You look like, go for it.
Well, it's a complicated question, but I think it's not going to happen only in the energy sector. I think as we are seeing, is very tied to what Connor was saying a few minutes later, before, that inflation is going to hit pretty hard, I think, and I don't know if it's going to be something wild like 10-20% across the board or something, but you cannot just print 50% of the US dollars in 1 year and expect everything to go fine. As they've been printing US dollars at a very fast pace in the recent decades, and thankfully, still the US economy can make all the other countries absorb this inflation. But I don't think that's sustainable, and I think we are starting to see the first cracks in the issue.
Yeah, I actually think there's an interesting opportunity in energy specifically to democratize it. People don't pay, at least in the U.S., that we have meters on the side of our houses. I don't know how many people go outside and monitor their meters. I'm sure some people do, but imagine if there was a way to calculate the actual energy you're using and maybe resell it to the next person down the line if they're using more. There's an opportunity for oracles and Bitcoin and some stuff there too. I imagine you just need a clever entrepreneur to come up with a way to monetize it.
I think this whole conversation though is why I hate the whole idea of like NFT, because even when I gave a presentation in London, I guess a year ago, and it was, I don't think the idea of tokenization is that complicated. It's really just a matter of, can you prove that there's something unique on the ledger? And to me, this idea of NFTs is cool because now we're saying, okay, these hats or these cards or these art, whatever, right? That now there's like some unique representation that on the blockchain that we can trade and whatever else. But to me, the whole point of Bitcoin is that I can now have, like I view when you make a twetch, for example, that's your intellectual property, right? So now in a way, every twetch is this concept of an NFT. Every single, and like the way that we're approaching this problem is like every time you review something, that is your property, right? And you own it physically with a key or whatever. And you know, that's not all that provides you ownership of it, obviously, as we found out today, if you didn't already know that. But the point being, like, the description of an NFT actually kind of gets away from what everything that you're doing in the blockchain should be some kind of form of putting property on the blockchain, whether it is your intellectual property. That's, to me, is taking the old paradigm of all of this free, you know, if information is money and whatever else, people are just offloading that and dumping it into other companies for free. And that is the idea of tokenization that I would like to flip on its head and just start. The reason why the blockchain is important is because you can very easily prove uniqueness and you can easily prove ownership. And so NFT, I think, just kind of gets away from that concept. But
Mark Wilcox will tell you that every Bitcoin hash is an NFT. He's right, actually. But
well, that's what a beauty of a hash is, right? I mean, a hash is proving unique creation. It's proving that something existed at some point in time, right? And so that's why I kind of like the whole NFT boom now. It's like, in a way, putting a hash on a blockchain kind of already did that. You know what I mean? But
right.
But anyway, yeah.
Let's bring that question back up, Moon, Mr. Moon. Oh, it's coming. All right. My lovely assistant here. At some point, here we go. Christian Declare, how do you guys see Bitcoin increasing efficiency? Hey, we already did this one, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'll touch on it real quick though. You know, that one's kind of outside my expertise, but I do think something that comes up often in Bitcoin and across digital currency is sometimes there's the belief that the digital currency is kind of going to replace the fiat currency in a lot of senses. And I feel like that's the big obstacle to overcome that. You know, it's kind of easy for us to sit here and talk about how that could be a future, but for a lot of people, maybe they don't have the tools or the resources, or they're just not, you know, crypto savvy to be able to, they're just not at that point yet. So I like the idea, but when it comes to using digital currency as a replacement for like the fiat system, I don't see it just yet. Maybe digital dollars and central bank digital currency is on the way, and maybe that would maybe that would lend to that problem and provide a bit of a solution. But in terms of Bitcoin just being the straight replacement, I don't see that happening. Maybe it'll live on Bitcoin, but I don't see it being Bitcoin.
I think it's a both and. I mean, right now, like, there's not a reason not to have a special purpose currency like the dollar, for example, but it can be anything. It can be your local town currency that gives you a discount, but then you can also spend your Bitcoin in much the same way that you might make a deal in gold or something. You know, like, people have the ability, they have the right, and if they have the power to do these things, then there's not a reason to use the asset or a token, you know, tokenized dollar or a tokenized, you know, for me, Chicago dollar or something like that. It gives us all those options. So that's the way I see it. Don King, the Don King, that'd be interesting, saying, anyone care to explain how one can suppress BSV for so long? Do they have so many BSV laying around? Just can't get my head around it. I don't think they actually have to have any BSV necessarily to keep it suppressed. When Tether's free, you can print it out of nowhere, and 30 billion Tethers printed out of nowhere, and you get an $18 million fine. That's free money, right? And if you can pay your open interest with free money, then you can just keep adding to your shorts forever, and you know, hold the price down and make sure all the comms are bought, and you know, CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, all these people all get paid on free money that gets printed out of nowhere. So
let's say there is suppression, which I don't know if I could prove, or I don't know if that's actually taking place, but let's say there is suppression. Maybe an idea behind that is, you know, there are a lot of, I'll just call them whales. There are a lot of Bitcoin whales. There might've been some Bitcoin Cash whales. And that being said, you know, if you were in on BTC, you got BCH. If you were in on BCH, you got BSV. You know, that being said, you might be a whale in BSV without supporting BSV. And, you know, a rumor that was going around is the very first time that BSV was like climbing the ranks in terms of like top 10 coins by market cap, the moment it passed Binance Coin, you know, like it kind of got shut down 3 or 4 spots. You know, maybe a rumor behind that is maybe CZ's this BSV whale who's able to suppress the price by, you know, doing these market sells at crucial times like that. But like, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying there's suppression, but maybe there's a lot more people with BSV than we would know or we would like to think who aren't in favor of it and who can make moves like that would keep it down.
For sure. Well, it's actually pretty easy too. I mean, a lot of people don't understand how these markets work, but a market maker is there just to watch the books and provide liquidity where it's needed. And if they cooperate, which they do, then they can cooperate to push prices up or down. It's really not very difficult. You just keep bidding each other up or bidding each other down. And then, I mean, actual investors, actual traders also play into that game. So, I mean, they have some fundamentals that they have to fight against, but it's not very difficult, especially with thin liquidity. They can create the liquidity wherever they want it. So, unfortunately, when everything's quiet and everything's dark and there's no light on anything and none of the trading's done on chain, you can play all kinds of funny games. So actually, we should probably give a shout out to TDXP app for showing everybody that every single trade, all the liquidity, all of the traders, everything can be audited on chain and work really, really well. I mean, that's a world worth pursuing, frankly. So,
yeah.
Should we touch a little more on some of the stuff coming forward? I like the conversation about developers as fiduciaries and giving power back to honest nodes. Does that pique anyone's interest?
I'm in. Let's shit on all the developers.
You know, it's funny because because it's so obvious, right? And we've been talking about it for a long time. And in the BSV economy, this actually just happened this past week. The Token Swap app and a bunch of people interested in the Token Swap app all reached out to Steve Shatters, of all people, because he's the lead developer of BSV, right? And rather than reaching out to Tau Mining or Mempool or Matterpool or any of these people that are interested in mining as your business partner, everyone's first thought is, well, let's ask Steve. Let's ask Steve to raise the limit. It's like, you know what? Steve actually raised the limit weeks ago. The miners haven't updated their software. And I think that's a really interesting microcosm right there. What do you guys think?
Well, it even goes back to, I was actually rereading, when all these idiots were saying that Mike Hearn and Elon Musk were working on some secret project together, which we have so many crazy people in BSV.
I was joking, but I said it.
I actually said it jokingly too. I said I might be Richard Dreyfuss shoveling dirt into my living room, but
well, I was like, I Googled fork in the road and it's like the second picture that comes up, but all of a sudden everyone, like, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
Point being, I started re-looking at some of Mike Hearn's stuff just because he was so forward thinking at the beginning of Bitcoin. But when he kind of commented on Reddit, he did like an AMA on Reddit or something maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And he had mentioned like what he thought about Bitcoin Cash at the time and whether they had learned any of the lessons from Bitcoin. And he had mentioned that he still thinks miners weren't, he kind of saw Bitcoin as a failure because miners hadn't taken the role that they were supposed to, and that everything was still kind of reliant on social consensus and developers to kind of like guide Bitcoin, you know? And I think that is still true to a degree. I think in BSV, there are miners that are definitely taking on that initiative to do stuff that others won't do and kind of creating that competitive ecosystem. But I think that thinking is just going to be here until miners start making some kind of direct line, hey, I have this business. But hang on real quick. I know I'm kind of ranting here, but the thing that is also missing is that there aren't individual businesses establishing themselves in going to make contracts with these miners. It's just random people on Twitter saying, I want to do this. Why aren't you letting me do it? And what we really need is more of an evolution into, and I'll tell you right now, you can go and make a contract with a company like Tall right now. You can go make a contract and set terms of mining fees, set terms of what you're looking for, right? So you can do that right now. It just requires you to not be this person just playing for fun on the internet and making projects. You actually have to have like a forward thinking mindset of, okay, if a miner mines your transactions, there's liability aspects. They're storing this data. It's kind of, we need to kind of grow up and start thinking about this differently. And I think that's, I think, where the issue stems from, is people aren't thinking of this as like business contracts and business relationships. It's still kind of this, let me play and do whatever mindset. And miners, you better do what I want you to do, because
right. I'm gonna broadcast this to the mempool in whatever way I feel like doing it, and somebody better gobble it up, or you're all losers.
Or else I'm gonna yell at Steve Shatters. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is a good question here from Tog or TOG. I actually don't even know. I talk to this guy all the time, but I don't know what he prefers. So what happens when Core release a patch and miners don't care? I think that's an interesting one. So let's say all the Bitcoin Core developers release, push out the software that, hey, here's the patch to push code back to where it was stolen. What happens? Is there a way to implore these miners? What does that look like?
That's an interesting question. I feel like Connor touched. I like when Connor said social consensus. Because like I feel like when BTC Core comes to when they put something out there like that, social consensus has already been reached. I don't know if there is much pushback at that point to shut that down. But I mean, when it comes to protocol, what do they call them? Is it BIP or is it EIP? The improvement proposals.
Bitcoin improvement proposal, yeah.
Right. So there's a period of time when people get to debate these things and hash them out and decide if they're good for the network or bad for the network, right? So isn't there that period where there is a chance to push back, not implement the proposal, or make changes in a way that would actually be beneficial through consensus?
I think that's what this is about. In my opinion, what I think they're trying to do is work the developers into a corner where they feel like, hey, you know what? I don't want to have an authoritative role in this, because now it comes with legal liability. I mean, a lot of these developers are frankly amateurs, so they work other jobs, they do other things. Not everybody is at Blockstream and driving a Porsche to work every day, right? Like a lot of code is committed by people that just send in a patch for something or suggest whatever. But if they merge in something like a soft fork, I mean, in Craig's opinion, they've created an airdrop, which is a taxable event for millions of Bitcoin holders. And when you do that to somebody, if you create a financial liability on somebody against their will, well, I mean, that's the nature of being a fiduciary, right? So, I mean, that really sucks, because I think a lot of open source developers just assume, hey, I'm going to contribute to this code, I'm going to solve this problem that I see technically, without considering the risks economically and in other people's pocketbooks. But if they're pushed in that way, well, then I think the response the response from most people will be, you know what? I quit. I back out. What does the white paper actually say? Who's actually in charge? Oh, the miners merged my code. Like, the miners accepted my code. They're the fiduciaries over the network, right? So back off of me. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's the chess piece that moves right there. And then all of a sudden, all these core developers and cash developers who think they're the gods of the network just pass the torch and say, you know what? Go sue Antpool and F2 Pool and everybody else. Make them do it. So I think that's a clever way to go about that. So maybe that's just a second order effect that I'm seeing, but I think that's a great thing, frankly.
There's liability now. I mean, there hasn't been a liability until no one has been liable for anything. And I think you're right. There's a liability on the part of developers if they're going to push code in that does something that has a monetary effect. And then there's liability of miners that are in probably 3 different jurisdictions or 5 different jurisdictions. Yeah, that's all it comes down to, is liability. But I actually like the comment that just came up, which is basically none of this really ultimately matters, and Bitcoin works, and now you can do it with it what you want. And I think what I found is, like, there are enough negative people inside of BSV even, let alone outside of BSV, So none of this actually ultimately matters to me or to anyone else. Like I wish Craig like luck, because he's done so much to get us to this point, and I think if someone stole money from him, he deserves that money back, and whatever else. And I will defend him. Like I think he is doing what the best that he can with the cards that have been dealt to him, and I think it's important to have people defend him, just because no one else is. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I don't think anyone has to look at it that way, but on the other hand, ultimately, we have Bitcoin that works incredibly well, incredibly well. The more you use it, the more you experiment with it, the more you learn that just how amazing this invention is. And so I'm sure Alex is well aware of that too. Yeah.
In fact, since we moved to BSV, we've never discussed the Bitcoin protocol ever at Handcash, or maybe just, hey, they're going to remove this limit. Okay. Oh, okay, great. That will be great for us. But none of the changes break anything. The only thing that oftentimes breaks is if not all the miners update the software, and then okay, you are relying on some new limits and others don't have it yet. So you have to push. For example, when they changed the fees from 1 Satoshi per byte to 0.51 or so by default, we were waiting for enough miners to actually do this. And the cool thing is that with things like miner ID, merchant API, we can run our business in a much more reliable way, and we don't have to worry about all of those technicalities. And although we are simplifying the Bitcoin experience for our developers, we have this Handcash Cloud thing that serves our developers, and we have been hiring people that didn't even know how to spell Bitcoin, practically, and they can actually work with our infrastructure and make payments and handle things. So although I think that's a niche, a specialty of people that will be able to actually write Bitcoin node software, kind of, or performance related things with Bitcoin, I think it's important with BSV that there are tools that basically allow you to not running a node. And this is something that people get shocked when we say this, but we at Handcash, we process like hundreds and thousands of transactions per month, and we don't even run a node, and we don't have to. I mean, we have all these tools, and you have SPV checkings, and you have all these kind of things, and it makes everything super, super cheap to run and very efficient.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Well, I think a lot of people don't understand that. I had a question.
And I may add one more thing.
Yeah.
I may add is that the difference is that when we were in BCH and all the talks that I see in BTC, they only talk about price. In BCH, they only talk about the protocol. BSV, we only talk about utility. And I think it really shows when you see how many apps and businesses are appearing every day.
Mm-hmm. Here's Jamie. I think Jamie's your guy, isn't he, Alex? He says, the BSV brand is the worst part of Bitcoin that we keep. We need to reinvent that to impact devs.
We're working on that somehow. No, it's not that we are going to rebrand BSV, but we are working on things to make that more user-friendly.
I think it's gotten better over time. It used to be that, let's say somebody's first exposure to Bitcoin SV was via Twitter, right? They might see a debate going on. They might see some notable people with a lot of followers, but then the response they might get, like, this is an IQ test, and then like things like that are just really discouraging. They're not inviting, and it's not good to attract newcomers. But the thing is, over the past few months, we don't see that anymore. Maybe that conversation has moved to a different place. But overall, it's just a lot more welcoming to people who have never experimented with blockchain before, who have never experimented with BSV before. So I think slowly but surely, BSV as a brand is getting better. It's definitely not.
What is something cool is that about what you said is, for example, about the. I would say the great majority of our latest 10,000 users, they didn't even know what a Bitcoin is. And they have very interesting questions because they are not asking, hey, where are my 12 words, which is something that people were asking us at first with Handcash or whatever, but right now they don't even know that that's a requirement. And it's pretty cool how we are already, for example, we are this is a kind of an exclusive, a premiere for this, but we are organizing a hackathon in a few weeks for only non-Bitcoin developers.
Nice.
Ooh.
And I think we are going to see a lot of very cool apps and very creative apps by using Handcash Connect in a way that, it's just easy to monetize with this. And
awesome.
We just have to keep polishing this thing. And, you have to offer things like, okay, the BSV that you are offering, you can have an option to actually settle on USD, your company earnings.
Nice.
Although people are going to be using BSV with a micropayment ecosystem, but I think we are not that far off from a big exponential growth on this technology and this ecosystem as a whole. We are already seeing that. We see strong numbers and consistent numbers through all the ecospace. We are monitoring transactions, users, Twitter. We are monitoring everything, and it's been growing very strongly in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, no, you deserve a real shout out. You and your team. A lot of people criticize Handcash for the coming soon brand for a while, right? Handcash 2.0 is coming soon for a long time.
Well, Connect took 18 months, but like Lightning, but we actually delivered, and it took 18 months because it's actually well built, and
it is.
The whole design is great because it's scalable. I mean, we can polish things and make it better and change some APIs, whatever. But the fundamentals of it, we can run with it for 5-10 years.
Yeah.
No, so that's great.
I think, and that's really what I want to compliment you on is after taking some of that criticism and building something. Handcash Connect is just perfect. I mean, it's fantastic. The way that it works is. Of course, you have a roadmap, but as a user, as a customer of yours, I'm a huge fan of Handcash, and I think the combination of keyless, like the threshold signatures and all of that, and then adding in like tokenized fiat in the future, which is something I hope you're doing. It sounds like you're working on.
And one thing that's underrated about what we are doing is that although I think this is the first system that is non-custodial and has cloud signing.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Yeah,
and it's great. It's great because you can trigger payments even if you're not using a computer. Payments can be triggered just because for some reason an action was triggered from your user, and that allows us to create great use cases that were never possible before. And you can even build an app for smart fridge if you want. So that's pretty cool.
Well, and that's awesome. Well, and it's abstracting away the BSV part of it, right? So if we have a branding problem or Bitcoin SV has a branding problem, I mean, you don't even have to generate keys. You don't have to do the crypto thing. And with tokens, you don't even have to know what chain you're using. And most people won't care anyways. So then all of a sudden you're using Handcash and you're playing a game.
We don't see it any different from people caring about what kind of ISP we use for a company, or if we use a Proton Mail or whatever or Slack or Microsoft Teams for our internal communications. I think it's just another tool, and it turns out that it's the best tool out there. Obviously, it's so good and so earth-shattering that we have T-shirts like this. So you don't have an HTTP T-shirt like this. It's not that cool.
Right.
But I think we have to be proud about what we are building here in BSV as a whole, and about the brand. I think it's not much of an issue with the brand, but the context of the brand. I think the BSV brand is not bad by itself, but I think you have to actually narrow down where do you want to use it. And for other use cases, maybe you want to have other kind of brands, although you are using the same base layer technology. And I think it's great as a whole.
Yeah. That's awesome. Connor, you started to say something. Go for it.
Well, I was going to say when you mentioned the cloud signing, the other thing that we found that actually makes the app a lot more efficient too. I mean, being able to sign data even without having to come back to the client is awesome. So I do really like that about Handcash. But the other thing I wanted to at least, I mentioned this to you the other day, Alex, but abstracting away the idea of Bitcoin and just having it be money is so much. I just think it's so important to reaching the non-crypto audience, which that's where we're going to target, is the non-crypto audience. And I think having it just be money is just so familiar to people, and it doesn't require you to have to learn about Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. So I was just going to keep congratulating Alex on Handcash.
Let's move on to
stop already.
No, we got one more Handcash related thing. While we're on the topic of Handcash, tomorrow I'll be doing a giveaway on Twitter. My Twitter name should be on the screen. If it's not, it's at Crypto American. CRYPTO American, and look out for that. Yesterday was Soon Eve, so today's like the Soon Christmas. I'm just announcing announcements. So if you follow me on Twitter, be ready for what's coming tomorrow, because I'm announcing that tomorrow there's an announcement. So go ahead and follow, look out for that. And, it wouldn't be possible without Alex and the Handcash team. So that's my last Handcash announcement. That's my last Handcash phrase.
We're getting good at this. So Monkish Rex saying, is it really a problem outside of crypto Twitter, though? Utility wins in the end. Exactly. General public still has no idea when the next proverbial iPhone shows up using BSV. That's all it takes. And
the only problem is when you start talking to my mom about, hey, but they hijacked BTC and they created BSV, whatever. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah. It's a niche argument. It matters to us, but it's like, the same thing. This will be one page in the history book in 20 years. So
I think what's also interesting is, sure, utility matters and utility wins in the end, but when is the end? For a period of time, I do think it's something that the Bitcoin ecosystem needs to tackle from within, or maybe they're the ones that create what will be the iPhone of BSV. But you're right, in the end, utility wins. Utility has longevity. Things need utility to survive into the future, but I don't know when the end is, and until we know when the end is or what brings us to the end, I do think it's important.
Hey, Patrick, there is no beginning and no end. This is a circle.
It's a circle.
Shout out to Michael Hudson.
It's a Taurus. It's a Taurus.
It's a Taurus. Yeah, right. Sure.
Right. Right. You're in the circle. Yeah. So, Don Fredrickson says, when the templates are coming, we non-developers can do more. Just a login for WordPress, be it any of the wallets. Money button felt natural for a long time. I do think he's right. I think there's an opportunity to create more simple, you can drag and drop stuff into WordPress, for example, and not actually, you may not know how to build a website, but you know how to just drag and drop and build something, right?
There are a lot of those coming, at least with Connect,
I had a good conversation with the folks from Fabric the other day, and that's kind of what was at the essence of our conversation, that right now we have a lot of mechanics who are good about what's under the hood, who can tinker with what's under the hood. But when Bitcoin SV gets to the point where it's more like picking the car you want to buy, where you just say, hey, I want the blue SUV with the comfortable seats. It's not about what's under the hood. It's not about tweaking the engine like that. But when more people can just select, and it's a simpler process and it accomplishes what they want done without them having to open the hood and put the car together themselves, that'll be another big step for Bitcoin.
I agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. David G asking, I really do think there's a sweet spot that BSV can fill when it comes to media like comics as NFTs. I agree. I mean, we talked about this a bit before, but I think anything that has value, anything that you would trade from garage sale items up to the kind of stuff you'd buy at Christie's for $500 million. I mean, just even the certificates. I think the simplest place to start would be the proof of purchase or the certification stuff. Like, just put that on chain, hash it to the item. Especially with BSV, you can upload a photo and other identifying things in that document up on chain, and you solve a lot of problems like that. So yeah, I think there's huge opportunities there. Thrills, who also has a very cool logo as their avatar, saying, Alex, any plan for adding Handcash browser add-ons so we can add paywalls to our own articles?
No comment. We're working on a few things related to that. Not something like money, but different. But no comment on that yet. We still have like our next 3 months are going to be focused on the fiat ramps, and another thing I think it will be very shocking to everybody. And then we'll see. And also there are many companies that are asking us. They want to outsource their wallet infrastructure to us. So we are kind of figuring out how to make it in a way that makes sense. And it's great because, people are seeing that, after 3.5 years in this sector, we have enough experience and they trust us for their infrastructure. And that's pretty cool. So that's kind of a priority right now. But yeah, we're working on something in that, and a few things related to
that. Kendra, there has been discussion about tokenizing real-world assets like real estate and stocks on the blockchain. Does BSV offer this facility? What advantages does BSV have in this regard with its competitors? Patrick.
The thing is that it's a really good question, and today we finally have both, right? Twetch was the first one to put the NFT out there. They tokenized the hat. That's the real-world asset. TDXP, you can trade tokenized stocks on there. They were the first one to do that on Bitcoin, as far as I know. So we do have both those things. Now, in terms of some of the advantages, if you want to launch an NFT on Ethereum, even if it's free to create the NFT, you have to pay the Ethereum gas price, which could be over $100 if, the network is congested. That's just one issue. If you look back at CryptoKitties, when the network gets bottlenecked and then things kind of become unusable and you're not even getting confirmations on your transaction, you run into a whole nother set of problems. So I think slowly but surely, we're going to have more tokenized stock trading on Bitcoin. We're going to have more NFTs and tokenization of real world assets on Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see some really interesting, never seen before use cases for tokens in general that come our way.
I think a good example was yesterday live on the air. I didn't even know this was happening. I'm glad to see the CoinGeek live stream becoming a place for people to make big announcements. But Josh Hensley was on, and I just wanted to talk to him about a couple of things. And he did an airdrop live on the air. He tokenized a token, a pre-existing token. He re-tokenized and did an airdrop. So I just want to point out that in a single transaction, he sent, I believe it was 200 outputs, and the whole thing cost under 4 cents. It's a very complicated transaction. It would have been several $100s on Ethereum, and he did it on air. Just pushed it out. And so when you ask about competitors, also thank you, Derek Moore, with regard to correcting my shorthand live here in the troll box. But BSV can do things cheaper and faster than anyone else. Now there's probably people that can code something up that makes other compromises with security and stuff. But if you want it in distributed consensus on a public blockchain, BSV is the most efficient place to do it. And actually, it's easier to code in many regards because the protocols are flexible, and you actually have a lot of choice. So in Ethereum, you have ERC20, for example, and everything needs to be compliant with that to function. But we have a robust and diverse set of things to use. So you can use the tokenized protocol, or Bitcoin Computer, or Run, or ELAST tokens, and they all have different attributes that are really really good and really unique. But people are happy to work with you too. So if you have a token idea, I mean, just reach out. In fact, if you want to reach out to me as a point person, I'm at Kurt Wuckert JR on Twitter. Shoot me a DM. I'll connect you with the right people. We'll make it happen. Yeah, it's up here somewhere. I don't know. There we go.
You're cute.
And bring that question back up, Mr. Moon. So Tom Nagy saying, does Theta work with BSV? So any blockchain, Theta is just another blockchain protocol. It's a separate network. Any blockchain can be connected to any other blockchain. You just need to create the bridge. So I guess the question would be, why do you want to connect Theta to BSV? If there's a business opportunity there, if you want to have data move from Theta and get stored on BSV because of BSV's unique storage capabilities, then again, reach out. Let's create a bridge. Let's make it happen. It's work, but it's not impossible by any means. Craig Hansen, if businesses are offered a cost-saving solution plus improved speed and security, would they balk when you say Bitcoin because they've probably been burned before with a previous blockchain offer. Anybody want to take that one? I have some experience here, but I'd like to hear other thoughts.
I'm gonna go ahead and say no, because I'm gonna say it's. I'll just explain it. If a business is reducing their costs and maybe increasing their revenue, that's just attractive to them. It might not matter how they're doing it necessarily. If they can get the solution in place, I think more often than not, there's no reason not to implement that solution. Now, I do think there's a bad way to pitch things. Maybe if you come and you're like, yeah, this is a blockchain. So you use all the buzzwords. This is the blockchain solution with the NFT token, and maybe that puts people off. But at the end of the day, if you can save somebody's bottom line, if you can reduce their costs and up the amount of revenue that they're using, I'm sure that they're willing to listen to you and they're willing to give it a chance.
I think the biggest issue there is exactly what Uniswap, for example, they are solving, and I think their approach is awesome. Businesses don't want to use the blockchain. They want to use a particular product that solves their needs. If that product runs on the blockchain and whatever, is none of your business. I mean, Uniswap basically wants to convert a traditional SAAP application, or I would say suite of applications, because it's pretty complex. They just want it to run on BSV, and that's it. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to change the way that they are classifying information or whatever. You just have to figure out how you bring that JSON into this token and move it around or whatever. But the company is not going to be interested in learning all of that and how does it work. They only want to know, hey, how much per month at this volume, and that's it. And if you have a very good track record, and Uniswap, again, shout out to Stefan, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, really is.
I think it's perfect. It's the perfect example for other companies to solve, to replicate.
I think I actually mentioned his name in an article I wrote this afternoon that'll be publishing in the next probably 12 hours. And I said, you know what? Stefan is the perfect example of a guy that is not on Twitter saying soon, but is actually making business calls and developing his product and shaking hands. So I think we need more Stefan Nelsons in the world. So I have nothing but respect for that man. Uniswap is a very cool company. I have no idea how to pronounce this name. I'm going to say Fakjanadu Anu. I'm guessing that's a pen name, but maybe not. Guys, keep in mind the first NFT physical asset sold on BSV and Twitch was not the hat. It was a limited supply Bitcoin trading card put out by Countergrind Card Flip. This is true. I remember it. However, I would argue that perhaps the first NFT sold on Twitch was actually sold at CoinGeek London a year ago when they sold the U27 user handle. Josh was up on stage, Josh Petty, the CEO, founder of Twitch, and he sold, I believe it was Kevin Pham's handle before he quit and said, I'm never coming back to Twitch. And so they said, okay, well, we'll resell your handle, which was a low number unique hash handle. And they sold it for a significant, it was up in the thousands of dollars. So,
but did they tokenize it?
I don't know that they tokenized it, but it's a unique hash based on their own algorithm.
Oh, well,
so
yeah.
It's,
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an NFT. Yeah. Sort of.
So we got King Caesar. I want to trade with lower fees from the United States. I trade what I invest in. Please build something like Bit7 with lower fees. I use Robinhood for now, but I want to use leverage. I guess I'm going to plug TDXP again.
TDXP
I guess.
Is awesome.
Yeah, technically you're not supposed to use it as an American, but I can't give investment advice. But I can tell you that VPNs exist, and you can be anywhere in the world with a little bit of guile. But no, you can't. I don't know what I'm talking. VPNs don't exist. Phil Loafer. What's the latest on True Reviews, Connor? We haven't heard you talk in probably 10 minutes here.
Let us know.
Let's hear
what's going on.
Well, it's no longer called True Reviews, so it's now rebranded to Brightview. Is our new name. We are going to launch very, 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 very soon. I can't give an exact date right now. We have another baby being born in the company, so we're trying to time it around baby bornness. But we are going to kind of launch in at least 2 phases. So the first phase is going to be focused on customers and consumers. So one of the things that we're really excited about doing is we're going to essentially bootstrap our database by paying people. So we're actually going to hand out a ton of Bitcoin to people just for fleshing out our database. So you'll be able to search any business or landmark or anything of that sort and actually review it, and you'll be able to tell us some information about it, whether if it's your favorite, let's say your favorite pizza place in the city or your favorite burger place, things like that, right? And we'll pay you for all those answers, and we're going to actually start paying people for data like from the start when you log in. So we hope what we can do is actually hand out a ton of Bitcoin, but actually we're paying for something. We're paying for data, and we're paying for people to actually do work to flesh out our database. And then our second phase will be focused on businesses, which we had done a lot of work around having businesses be able to actually have verified reviews for their businesses and be able to issue rewards and tokens and things like that for people in exchange for honest reviews. So that'll kind of be our phase 2, but phase 1 will be focused more on the consumer. And probably the biggest thing that we're going to do really is just be a big faucet for people to get Bitcoin, but it's going to require you to do a little bit of work for it. So
cool. It's a good idea. Got a question here from Kendra saying, at the moment, transactions on BSV are very cheap. When the number of uses on BSV network increases and the BSV price increases, will the transaction fees grow at the same time? This is actually a unique key differentiator in Bitcoin. Alex, I can see you thinking about it too.
I think in the mid to long term, the monetizing strategy from miners is going to change radically. I think they will even pay for the fees themselves, and you just have, if you want to be plugged into a miner, you'll have to pay a monthly fee or so, depending on your level of usage or something in fiat. I think that makes sense for all parties involved, and I think that's what's coming. And I'm not fear. And also, we are building use cases that all of them rely on low fees. If miners decide to actually increase the fees dramatically, that would hurt their chain and their business, and I don't think it's in their best interest to actually raise the fees in a way that's that's dangerously high.
Yeah, I think what we've seen stress tests, and every time the stress tests occur, we see the price actually go down per transaction. So in an efficient market, and there's no more efficient market than Bitcoin, because you can instantly price everything that is in the mempool and on chain. The volume allows the miner to lower the price per transaction simply because the volume exists. So much like if there was only one car in the world, even if it was a Toyota Camry, it would be whoever needed the car the most or whoever had the most money would, they may pay $1 million for the one Toyota Camry in the world, right? But as scale goes up, you have this opportunity to lower prices by creating the efficiency that comes with economies of scale. So miners will be fighting for transactions. They want to build the blocks that earn them the most money. And that will be a downward bidding war. So quite the opposite of the BTC fee market, where there are arbitrary limits and therefore there's bottlenecks. With no bottlenecks, miners are bidding for your business. So it's like the Walmart versus Target model. Like the more competitors there are from stores, the lower prices get, the more value that the consumer gets. So bring the volume and prices will go down. That's how free markets work when there aren't arbitrary limits. Got a bunch coming in here. We've actually been on for almost an hour and a half. Is there anything, since you are my esteemed guests and you were delightful enough to agree to come on short notice, is there anything you guys want to cover, or anybody that deserves shout outs or anything while we're here and you have the bully pulpit?
Nothing crazy, but I want to see a DAO created on BSV. There's the DAO. It's at DAO Gorilla on Twitter right now. I know I'm the first holder of the ape token, but I want to see that materialize. It's something that exists on Ethereum. There's no reason it can't exist on Bitcoin. this is a call to developers as well. I think there should be a proposal within the DAO that if you can seriously put this voting system on chain, everything lives on chain, so it's no BS. All records are verifiable. Right now, that's done through Twitch. But if there's any dev that could help out in that regard and bring that to fruition, I think that would be huge. That's something I want to see built out and more of. So that's Twitter. It's at DAO Gorilla, and on Twitch, I think it's user 34859. So if you have a chance, give that a look. Any ideas? I'd love to see more about that. Any competitors? I'd love it. But there's no reason we can't have these tools, resources that exist on other blockchains. And the more innovation that can happen, I think that'll get us to a better place faster. So it'd be good to see that come together.
I agree. I think a DAO is a really interesting, innovative thing. And actually, it goes a little bit contrary to the law meme, but I've said it a few times now. I think it's important to try stuff that's maybe a little bit gray market and show the innovation possible. Like, hey, we can form essentially a decentralized LLC between us here on chain, and it's enforced by smart contracts. And as long as you're not malicious, I mean, if you form a DAO to do human trafficking, then I hope you end up in in the meat grinder. But if you're forming a DAO to try a new business model that creates real value, then that's the kind of thing that you can present to government regulators and say, hey, we innovated this thing. Can you give us a special tax status and that kind of thing? So yeah, I think that's
an important point to make as well. I think it's important that the tooling on Bitcoin is getting there where we can begin to push the boundary. And honestly, as long as you're acting with honest intentions, as long as you're not doing this rug pull exit scam, I say push those limits. Like right now, it could be a gray area just because the world has never seen it before. But if you're acting honestly, I'm sure that either it's going to turn out well or the help will come your way to make it something with more clarity. But I think people need to go ahead, push themselves, push the network, and let's create as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got a question.
We always have to advance the regulators. I mean, when this company from San Francisco, Bird, I think it's called, with the electric scooters, they were not waiting for the regulation on electric scooters to be out there or ride sharing or whatever. They just bought a lot of scooters and spread them into San Francisco, launched an app, and it was successful. And regulators, if you are we are very scared of everything and we want to have everything perfect at hand cash, whatever. But then you see that there are things like Tether, or you see many of these, even everybody that's running a Lightning node. I mean, that's if doing that without money transmitter license, whatever, should get you in trouble. But I think they are not enforcing it yet, because I think also there are a lot of regulators that really want to let people experiment, because after all, you have to let people experiment right now. So I would say all developers that even if you have a very crazy idea, just give it a shot. I mean, if you're honest and you're not scamming people or doing very weird things about the information you are collecting, and if you're just getting some feedback for a new potential use case, go for it. I don't think nothing is going to happen if you're being honest. And of course, I mean, if you're actually gambling or doing one of these things that are very clear that are already regulated, then follow the rules. But if you're doing something that you think it's a little bit gray, like for example, not in every country there's a distinction between custodial and non-custodial wallets, and even the definition of a virtual currency changes from one country to another dramatically. Yep. So regulators, to be honest, they don't even know what any of these things that we are doing, how they work, and I think it's a great time to experiment and let the regulation, people with money and more success or whatever will start doing all this regulation stuff gradually, but don't be afraid.
No, I agree. We'll do a quick question here from my friend Casey Hamilton. She says, hello, guys. Question I was asked: how do you give permission to, say, your pharmacist once your healthcare records are put on chain to fill a prescription? So there's a few ways to go about this. You can encrypt your data so that only your keys can access it. But somebody needs to build an app, basically, because Bitcoin itself is an identity solution, or it's part of one. And so you can build an application that unlocks a certain amount of data. So if you were to say have something on your cell phone and you can decrypt just whatever the pharmacist needs to see, or just your dentist needs to see, or if you're having surgery, you can have an emergency button or whatever. Also, like, hey, I need the hospital to have all of my records now. Then they have access to that, but it's not really given to anybody else. So I think there's a massive opportunity there for somebody to build a medical app that allows you to pick and choose who needs to see what and when, and therefore your records aren't at 5 different doctors and 1 hospital and 3 dentists that you see over your life. So yeah, I mean, by all means, build an app that does that. But the solution, that the keys and Bitcoin, they're all there. And I'd be willing to bet Alex would be happy to integrate it with Handcash Connect if
I'll
if
add
you have an
something.
idea.
As long as they're payment related, we want to keep it, just for payment.
Sure.
At least for
Absolutely.
now. Then if we do things with tokens or whatever, we'll specialize another product or maybe extend the SDK somehow. But yeah.
I'll even add, I used to work in that industry, and I find it funny, like EHR data, that's essentially what they're trying to do is around this. And everyone that's complaining that they haven't seen anything out of them yet or whatever else, I don't think people understand how incredibly complex of an industry it is and how highly regulated the industry is. So yeah. I just want to throw that in. I actually spoke with the EHR data founders, and they definitely know what they're doing, but I don't think people understand how complex that industry is. And then the other thing I mentioned too is, Kurt, you kind of touched on it, but the other benefit that Bitcoin has that I don't think people really take too much advantage of is it's a UTXO system. So built into Bitcoin is an unlimited amount of Boolean variables that you can have, where you can say, you can actually have access granted on whether UTXO is spent or unspent. And I don't think anyone's really done that yet or is working on it. I think ecat.media was working with access tokens and things like that, but
and it was pretty cool. He demoed me the technology, and I think the access tokens are a very fantastic use case.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I may add that I think just like with the tokens, this can be solved in 1,000 different ways with Bitcoin, because it's so simple that it doesn't constrain you into doing things one way. Typically, when you have a very complicated system, like the Lightning Network, for example, you can only do things in one particular way so it doesn't break. The cool thing with Bitcoin is that it's very robust in its simplicity, and that's something that very few people understand. That actually the simple, for example, with the people think at first sight that, or at least that's what they thought at first. I think that the perception is changing, at least on BSV. People first thought that Handcash was a not very good wallet product or very good software because it was easy to use. But I think it was easy to use because it was great on the backend. I mean, you have to make a lot of decisions for the user, and you have to be predictive, and you have to do many things in the background so the user doesn't notice. And that takes time. But the great thing is that this very simple technology, Bitcoin SV, allows us to actually be as flexible as we want on the backend to actually offer this kind of technology. And this is, again, something that compared to something like Lightning Network, because we have reviewed that technology many times.
Yep.
Super different. Super different.
Here's one for you, Don, asking, would it be possible to use BrightView in different ways other than restaurant reviews? Thinking like HR, Glassdoor, employee reviews, etc.
Yeah, I had mentioned kind of this phased approach idea that we have, and really ultimately we want to do is actually open up. The reason why this has taken us so long is because we've been working on how do you structure this on the blockchain in a scalable way, and also have it interesting where it's not just dumping stuff into op return and then, which is really easy and it's really not that interesting. So it is annoying. I have been kind of quiet because I just don't want to have to be like the person that keeps saying, like, we're working on it. But ultimately what we want to do is we think we've built a really nice back-end infrastructure, and we want to open it up. And, like I like to golf, for example. If someone wanted to build a version of this just for golf courses and have attributes that were unique for golf courses, that's what we ultimately want to do, is open it up, allow people to to pick their industries. We're going to be very generalized at first and just make it anything that you can Google search and kind of be that competitor to Google reviews. But I think it would be really awesome if people took what we've built and then build layers on top of it and structured it around things like anything that can be uniquely identified. They can build a review structure for it quite easily, actually. So that's what we're focusing on long term, at least.
Very cool. Looks like a drinking game is being assembled in the comments. Every time someone says BSV, take a drink. So Zatoshi, one of actually my single biggest sponsor of the show so far, saying, yo, Kurt, what's on Alex's t-shirt? We all want to know. It looked like Iron Man.
Oh, this is Iron Man Jimmy.
Ah, great.
I had to buy it.
It was scary in Korea to see that tower over you on the wall.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Were you in Korea, Alex? Maybe you weren't.
Yeah, but which tower?
Oh, no. At the party, there was just a giant wall with him and Craig and Steve, and they were just towered over you on the wall. Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Was too weird not to buy it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the best reason to buy any t-shirt, frankly. I should also give a shout out a little bit here too. I got I'm wearing this very cool Bitcoin t-shirt. Yeah, from I'll stand up a little bit. There we go.
Zero comps? Where do you get that?
No, it is from Satoshi Quotes. So maybe SatoshiQuotes.com. I don't remember the website. Hopefully he's still watching. He can put it in the troll box. But some really cool.
Now that I'm thinking, should I convert this into an NFT?
Yes.
People will pay extra because you wore it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be a downside, yeah. I think.
So Charlie's asking, I want an Active Directory Samba on BSV. Would be so cool. Or some things like what Chronoverse are doing with syslog. We need more IT machine use of BSV. So I actually come from a cybersecurity background, and I can tell you right now I'm working with some people to plot out a very simple suite of tools to apply to just simple things that could bolster very simple cybersecurity and IT related workflow stuff. So, Connor disappeared all of a sudden there. Looked like he was waving at somebody. So yeah, I can tell you right now that that's something that's top of mind and something I'm considering because I have a little bit of experience in the space. So I don't have any plans necessarily. There's no business set up, no product coming out yet necessarily, but doing a little bit of due diligence to look at what that would look like. So soon.
Soon, TM.
Soon, TM. Yeah, Don King saying tokenize it. Absolutely tokenize that shirt.
I will ask. In fact, I think to Edge, they were saying like, hey, send us over whatever thing you want to tokenize. I will. Let's do it.
I like it.
Let's do it.
It sounds like fun. EHR data will prove Bitcoin capabilities on a massive scale. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's such a simple product that I think the most important thing actually that EHR data is going to do is show people that you can hash anything to the blockchain, like anything that is made better with data integrity. You know, I say this all the time, right? Data integrity matters. That's that's crucial. You know, like. And Patrick, I see you talking. Yeah, go for it.
On top of that, you know, sure, EHR data is going to show, you know, BSV's capabilities on a massive scale. But, you know, there's people already doing that, and I think that shouldn't be overlooked. I think what Paul Chiari did, hopefully I'm saying his last name right, with MetaStream and WeatherSV, you know, he generates massive amounts of data that come through the chain every single day. So what EHR data, I'm really looking forward to it. It's also going to show that at scale what can be done, but there's people doing it now, and they need some credit too. So let's not forget that.
Yep. No, absolutely. Paul was the first guy, right? To really write big data and WeatherSV, and frankly, every other like data machine to machine data app that's on BSV really went through Paul. So he deserves a lot of credit there. Naka Chips, that's got to be an alias, unless you know their parents are hilarious. Is there a BSV wallet to hold large amounts of BSV? This will be the last question, first of all. So I want to wrap up. So if you guys want to, say hi, mom, or whatever at the end, you can think about the last bit while
I would recommend Gravity.
That's a good one. Actually,
it's the closest to a bank, and
Mhm.
you have to differentiate what a wallet is and what a bank is. And
yeah,
I wouldn't hold. Just think about this. Most wallets are maintained by 2 or 3 people, and do you really want to have your life savings there? I don't know. Just think about it. Things can go wrong. We're even at Handcash, we are 7 people, and so far we haven't had any big issue or whatever, and it's super safe. But again, we are not a bank, and we don't want to recommend people like, hey, yeah, dump all your millions here. No, because
right.
Who knows? We just don't want to be responsible because we don't offer an insurance, and we just want to be
right.
We would just want you to be mindful that this is a wallet product, and most wallets are just wallets. So I would recommend something like Gravity, for example. It's closest to a bank.
It's a good idea. Yeah, they're insured. They're an insured custodian and all of that. I think if you have experience with Bitcoin over the last 12 years, which when I started doing Bitcoin stuff, you basically had to run your own node. There wasn't even a light wallet option when when I started, frankly. But you can still generate. You can use the old Bitcoin wallet generator software, like air gap a computer. If you're the cypherpunk guy, you can use the old Bitcoin paper wallet generators and just send BSV. So you just make sure you generate legacy Bitcoin hashes, and you can do it that way.
The problem with that is that once the app is compiled, there's no way to actually know that the same code that you see on the GitHub is the same one that you are installing from the App Store or whatever. There's no way of telling.
Yeah.
So everything comes to trust. If you trust the developers, if you trust the brand, whatever. So I think everything comes down to trust, and we have seen a few times that there were some fake APK files for wallets, and when you create a wallet and you put money in, then the developer, they already know your 12 words and wipe them out.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That's why we don't offer the APK running around. I mean, if you see a Handcash APK for installing it on your Android, just don't install it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And actually, there's more as an American, I can't use Gravity, for example. So, we need professional services everywhere. Yeah, at least as far as I'm aware. Hopefully that changes. It was not the case last I checked. So but yeah.
In that regard, if you're in America, when it comes to holding large amounts, if that's really what you're interested in doing, or that's the route you're going, if you took matters into your own hands, and you just had cold storage, but you really got to be on top of it. You got to know how to get back in. You really got to have your key, your 12-word phrase. I know we're trying to phase it out, but you got to have it down. If you're holding large amounts and you don't want to put it on a hot wallet, you don't want it on exchange, you want to be in control of it yourself, I would look at some cold storage options. I know Exodus Wallet is a really good one. I could vouch for that. There's some people in the Bitcoin ecosystem who used to work for them. You could talk to them to learn more, or information's out there. But I say you'd want to custody it yourself at that point. If you're worried about anything bad happening to it, you want to be in custody of it by yourself.
Yeah, I can recommend Exodus too. I used it for a few years when I used to trade and all that shit, but it was very reliable, very well built.
Yep, yeah, it's a good product. So Electrum SV is another one, but again, your computer needs to be secure. So like all of these things are like cascading liabilities, right? So I use all of the wallets.
Roger Taylor is great. Roger Taylor is great. And when you said, Patrick, about the 12 words, I don't think that's going away. I think just like the legacy address, I think it's part of the base layer of Bitcoin, and I think that's going to be there always. The only thing is that there will be products that will opt not to use it for their niche audience, whatever, but there will be other products that, hey, that's a feature, that's a bonus for that. If we have, for example, if we offer the self-custody wallet for big savings, whatever, I think we would do it with legacy addresses and with 12 words. Our choice is not that we hate things, is that we think for the users we are targeting, there are better alternatives, or at least we should provide better alternatives.
Yep. So I should also, there's a bunch of comments. I should give a shout out to Simply Cash Wallet. Another good way to do it is if you have an old cell phone, you can install Simply Cash and then just don't put that phone back on the internet, and then you can't get man-in-the-middle attacked and all kinds of stuff, but you can still generate addresses. So that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah.
There's ways around it.
Shout out to the creator of Simply Cash, because it's a really great product, because, well, it's simple, but also, when we have metrics of everything, when we have communication with their wallet, it's the best, the fastest design hand cash, of course.
Yeah. Well, and it's robust.
It's great. It's a great infrastructure. It's very well maintained.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. All the features you could ever need. It lets you sweep. It lets you create different derivation paths. It lets you generate multiple wallet. Like it's a very powerful but very simple wallet. So it is a really good thing. So with that, we should wrap up, guys. Do you need to say bye to anybody? Give shout outs?
I would like to shout out to my, especially to my team. We are 7 already, and I'm very proud of each of one of them. And they're crazy as fuck, and I think we fit together so perfectly. It's awesome, and also the things they are coming up with, the ideas they have. It's incredible, because I don't, as a CEO, I don't have to tell anybody in my team what they have to do. It's incredible. I mean, in fact, I'm just doing what a CEO should do. It's like, let me know what I can do to actually make your job easier. And it's incredible that we got this amount of talent and in so very little time. It's incredible. I'm very thankful for them.
Absolutely. Patrick.
In closing, for me, look out for the hand cash giveaway on my Twitter tomorrow @CryptoAmerican. I really want to see the DAO idea come together. Developers, you could reach out to the Twitter account. Everybody has an even stake. Things are voted on in terms of proposal. It was voted on today if I could come on and talk about it on the show. So, at its core, it's already operating on, there's not one person making decisions. It's a DAO. You got to vote to make these decisions. So that's @DAO Gorilla on Twitter. On Twitch, it's 34859. That's the user number. It'd be cool to see those things come together. And just shout out to everybody who's really, working to push this space forward, who's pushing boundaries, and is really just trying to make Bitcoin really cool features, really cool products, platform services, and, the technology of the future, getting it where we know it should be in terms of utility, users, and enterprise solutions.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm going to let you go, and then I'm going to do my closing at full screen. So thank you so much for hopping on. Good to see you guys. Take it easy. So everybody, for my closing thoughts, first I want to say, Derek McGill, I see you in the comments. I will see you in prison. Just kidding. So I want to let everybody know you can be the Soon. You can do anything that you think of is buildable on Bitcoin SV. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, there are developers looking for work. And if you don't know how to fund those developers, there's money floating around from all kinds of people that would love to partner with you. And if you want people to connect you, if you want somebody to connect you into those business development opportunities, you can reach out to me. I'll connect you to the right people. I don't care to get involved necessarily any further, but I will if you want me to, I guess. But it's something that I think we really need to do to get past waiting for Calvin and Craig to make us rich and do all these things is not good for anybody. Calvin and Craig don't owe you anything. Craig has given us a network that can settle terabyte blocks on the mainnet today. You just need to fill them. You need to create the business opportunities that fill those blocks, because the tools are there. We have the most superlative network in the entire blockchain space. And we really need to start acting like it, because we're the biggest horse in the race. So I want to say thank you to Mr. Moon. You've been a lovely producer. I will not put you on air. Don't worry. unless you really want to, you can pop on real quick and wave. we're getting the head shake. All right, guys. I'm gonna sign off. I want to say thank you again, always to CoinGeek and everybody else that makes the show possible. Mr. Moon, my delightful producer, and I want to give a shout out to my wife and son who went to go visit people so I could work all day in peace. They're having a good time, and I miss my family, and I'm looking forward to seeing them as soon as I sign off. So take care, everybody. I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. This has been the CoinGeek live stream. Bye-bye.
This is buybsv.com, the quick and simple way to buy Bitcoin SV. You can't miss it. It says a quick and simple way to buy BSV on buybsv.com. It's safe and secure. Within an hour, you'll own BSV digital assets, which means it's so quick and simple. So if you want to buy BSV, use buybsv.com. It does exactly what it says.